Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof for the 14th of July 2024. There's been a lot of bandwidth dedicated to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Obviously, you can understand that. And as a result, I have fewer nuggets to share with you in today's first video on the Ukraine war. Nonetheless, we have the general staff figures, all the usual caveats applied to these. You can find them in the description to the video below. 1,320 is an uptick in personnel lost, fairly considerably, as in we were sort of around a 1,100 mark, occasionally to 1,200. So 1,320, I think, is showing that there's been some pretty difficult activity along the front lines, probably Kharkiv being a large part of that, but also, my goodness, the places right up and down the eastern front. And Uruzhany as well, interestingly, in the Velika Novosilka area on the southern front line. So a little bit of an uptick there. 7 tanks taken out yesterday. That is just about average, a snip below average. 32 armoured personnel vehicles, almost double average. 46 artillery systems. That is at least double the average and some, so fairly significant losses in armoured personnel vehicles. That usually means that the Russians have been attacking, and indeed when you lose that number of people as well, probably confirms some attacks yesterday from the Russians. 1 anti-aircraft warfare system lost. 77 vehicles and fuel tanks is a very high number in that category, and 10 pieces of special equipment, fairly high. So pretty considerable numbers across a few of those categories in particular. I think that's a pretty bad day for the Russians. Of course, doesn't necessarily tell us anything about the Ukrainian casualties and losses. This loss statistic sheet from Andrew Perpetua, if we take out all the black ones at the bottom, which are, I think, unknown, could be either side, and a couple of decoys there, it's probably... it's approaching parity. It's probably 1.4 to 1, something like that, I'm guessing. Not what the Ukrainians would need if their 3 to 1 rate is, as I've said many times before, what they would need in order to prevail in this war over a long period. When we look at the Ukrainian losses, there aren't too many serious losses there, which is good news. Some UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles, Starlink, so they're not like crazy expensive compared to, say, an M777 howitzer or maybe a Senator APC, Rochelle Senator. That's a Canadian provided one. They're taken out with night vision drone. So most of the combat assets are damaged as opposed to destroyed. And the civilian vehicles, the usual sort of pickups and SUVs and whatnot. So not too bad for the Ukrainians. Not enough Russian stuff compared to normal, though, for the correct kind of ratios. Let's look at the Russian losses. TOS-1, that's a thermobaric launcher, so that's good news that one of those is taken out. Some T-80 tanks of different variants. A tracked garden shed being one tank. That's with a tank with the corrugated iron and anti-drone cope mechanisms on top that make it look like a garden shed on tracks. So one of those taken out. Some infantry fighting vehicles, a couple of BMP-3s, don't see too many of them. There are claims that there are no BMP-3s left in storage. So if they have 2 destroyed on that list, then that's their better BMP infantry fighting vehicle getting taken out there. We have some APCs, Tornado U, MTLBs getting taken out, and then usual sort of trucks and civilian vehicles, quite a lot of them, and some golf carts and whatnot. So nothing crazy valuable for either side there, other than the fact that all of this is valuable, and losing this amount of kit is not going to help. For the combat asset losses, the Ukrainians have lost 3, 5, 6, 7 there. The Russians have lost 2, 4, 6, 7, 10, 15. So 7 to 15, that is a 2 to 1 combat asset ratio, loss just over 2 to 1. So that's slightly better in the category that counts possibly more here. And also, if you look at the damage, so 2 out of 7 are destroyed for the Ukrainians, and how many out of 15 are abandoned or destroyed? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 out of 15 are are yes, or no, 11 is that? Well, anyway, yes, that's 11 out of 15 are destroyed or abandoned. So that is a really good statistic in that context. So yeah, not quite good enough though, I think, for the ratios overall for the Ukrainians. That was from yesterday. I don't think this is because I don't think I had one yesterday. So this was like 20 hours ago. So this might actually refer more to the day before. But of course, it's not like all of these confirmed losses happen in the 24 hours beforehand. Yes, the publication of the videos might be in the previous 24 hours, but that could be referring to something that happened a week ago, or it could be a montage that has pieces of equipment being lost over, say, a 2-week period for that particular unit. It kind of averages itself out over time, but just to give you an indication that it's not necessarily what took place in that time period. Right, just a few bits and pieces to add to this section. So self-propelled guns, like the Ukrainian AHS Crab, do not shoot and scoot, as that much time in the open would be fatal due to ubiquitous recce drones and FPVs, says this source. This goes along with what Andrew Perpetua has been saying. In fact, both elements of this. One, they don't shoot and scoot too much anymore. It's just too dangerous. The scooting part with that many drones in the air is just leads yourself to be too vulnerable to those drones. And instead, what you are starting to see more often are SPGs and howitzers in general being heavily camouflaged or heavily protected. So either they can fire from a protected setup, or they get dug in, sometimes like pretty much underground, and then come out to do the firing and then go back in. So here instead, this guy says, they stay in a camouflage protected position, emerge briefly to fire, and then return quick as a bunny. So this is your adaptation to the requirements of the war. And if you want to survive and fire your howitzer needs to be protected and also not moving too much. You move from A to B, and it's the moving that gets spotted by the drones, not the staying in a camouflaged position. Here we have two BM-21s being violently disassembled, and that's what they look like when they have been on the receiving end of some serious ordnance, or some ordnance that has caused some serious explosion of their own weaponry on board. So that's one BM-21 that is smoking and in a less than ideal situation. And here's another one that itself is not looking too hot here. Out in the field, that is what's left of a BM-21 grad, apparently. I mean, goodness me, I wouldn't be able to recognize it, but I'm sure the missiles give it away a little bit there. Anyway, all the rockets. So yeah, a couple of grads taken out in that footage. Russia on fire, hashtag Russia on fire. It's in white again, showing us some flames taking place. This is in the middle of Krasnodar. In fact, I can give you more than that as well. We have, yes, so this might be worth looking at as well. So both, because they're both in Krasnodar. So this is a city of Krasnodar where you've got fire in the middle of the city. And again, these kind of events seem to take place far too often to be just random accidental fires. I think there's just some incredible statistical anomalies here that would lead us to, I think, justifiably believe that something is going on in Russia that, either probably both. The idea that you've got a lot of insurance jobs being done because it's not looking good in Russia at the moment from an economic point of view. I don't know where that's gone now. It's disappeared, what I was showing you. But yeah, either things are not looking good in Russia, but from an economic point of view, so that rather than close your business down, you burn it down. and claim the insurance money. That seems to be happening a lot, but that is connected to the war as well, because the economy is tanking due to the war. Or you've got sabotage taking place, partisan activity, or you've got strikes on these places from drones, or you've got issues to do with underfunding of emergency services. So you might have forest fires being more of a problem, or natural fires being more of a problem, and that causing fire damage, etc., etc. So many things going on, and it's all contributing to a very difficult situation for the Russian emergency services for a start, because as you can see here, Krasnodar region, so we're just looking at the city of Krasnodar now, the region in Russia is on fire. Large forest fires broken out near the village of Abrau-Durso in the Krasnodar region. Tourists are being evacuated from nearby recreation centre. There is a risk of fire spreading further. As I've said to you before, forest fires used to be in the forest fire season or wildfire season across Russia. Russia's a huge country, right? And it is obviously vulnerable to natural or indeed human-started forest fires. And what would happen in peacetime would be that the conscripted soldiers would act as the fire services out in the sticks, sorting out these fires. That would be part of their remit, and it's a kind of a cheaper way of Russia to be able to deal with the threat of wildfires. So you've got these conscripted soldiers, you've got peacetime. One of their jobs is just doing that, so you don't have to pay for much more extensive emergency services. But since the war started, those people have been somewhat busy, involved in defending the borders, either or surreptitiously being sent into Ukraine, because you're not technically allowed to send in conscripts, and so on and so forth. And what that means is that there haven't been the people to deal with the wildfires that have ripped into some of the regions of Russia over the last couple of years. It is definitely a challenge for the Russians there. Anyway, Krasnodar definitely suffering at the moment. So you can see there some pretty extensive fires taking place. Okay, on distant strikes, Russian media has reported a drone attack on a television tower in Sudzha in the Kursk region. That has possibly also caused, there's talk of a substation being hit. Ukrainian FPV hits a Russian substation in the Kursk region, which led to power outages. So Kursk has been targeted in a couple of ways there, reportedly also, in Sudzha region. A substation and possibly a television mast there. Russia is claiming to be using, in fact, Ukrainians are claiming Russians are using 3-ton aerial glide bombs from Su-34 jets against Ukraine. So that's the kind of Carb 3000, not the Carb 500, 1000, 1500. These are 3,000 kilograms of explosives. Russia has started to use Su-34 jets to launch these aerial glide bombs weighing 3,000 kilograms against Ukraine, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And I think I've seen one attached to the bottom of a plane on some footage as well. Now, that's all we have. Really very quiet night in terms of strikes into Russia and strikes into Ukraine. So we're moving on to a couple of other bits and pieces here. Again, not too much in this section either. And one of the problems in Ukraine at the moment for both sides, right, for the Russians and the Ukrainians, is the record-breaking temperatures we are seeing. The weather at the moment is incredibly hot. The records, as mentioned, are being broken, and that means that they are having to fight this war in very hot temperatures. That means they need more water, but actually water is a problem, particularly for the Russians to get hold of. And so you've seen lots of footage of particularly Russians filtering water. We've been hearing about the claim, I didn't report it yesterday, but there was one of these messages passed around to Russian, like printed off sheets of paper, like how to, make sure you get enough water. And one of these suggestions was urinating into some water in order to like kill off the bacteria that might be in there. So you have to urinate into water that you collected from, I don't know, some well or stream or puddle or something, and then drink that. And it's just, that's how desperate things are. So it is not good. for either side, but I think particularly for the Russians in terms of their logistics for water. Another problem for Ukraine is, and its residents can be water, says Tim White here. The excessive heat and lack of rain has seen levels fall drastically. Situation here in the south of Dnipropetrovsk region is exacerbated by Russia's destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. Microorganisms flourish. So yeah, that's further challenge for people on the front lines. And then just going to leave you with this. This is some of the most effective anti-drone warfare here, which is anti-drone rituals. Getting a bit of protection from their chief wizard there, so that on his shins as well, which is always useful. I'm sure that's going to protect him from an FPV drone hurtling towards him at a rate of knots. Anyway, I guess, if it makes you feel protected, then psychologically, go for it. But I'm not 100% sure that is as good as even as good as a Coke cage, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. Really appreciate your support. Take care, guys. It's Sunday. We've got family coming around, and it's going to be a little bit difficult to get my content out going forward today. I might try to just throw everything out on a live. I haven't done a live for weeks, I think. So it'll be nice to have a chat to you guys in a live. Comments and keep your eyes peeled. I may do that a little bit later. Take care. Speak soon.